Hi there. In this video, I want to run through 2 points around areas of leverage as a business owner if you're finding yourself in a position where you're struggling to grow your business any further. Apologies for the wind noise in the background. So diving straight into it, I just first want to touch on this framework here, and I did a full video on this, and I've linked that in the video description below. But there are obviously 2 sides to the e-commerce space. Number 1 is acquisition. So how do you acquire new customers? And then number 2 is retention. How do you ensure that the customers that bought from you come back and buy your product again, or at least recommend your product to other people to buy as well? Now, kind of just to put this into a scenario of where or who these points are aimed at. So this is primarily focused towards a business owner that has obviously started a business, grown that to, let's say, 10, 15K in sales per month, has reached break even or just under break even, and is struggling to grow the business further. In my opinion, there are 2 core factors that will provide the most leverage for you as a business owner. So number 1 is product. And just to break this down as well, in my opinion, on the acquisition side, the 2 underlying factors on the acquisition side are product and content. And then on the retention side, it's product. So on the acquisition side, to mention that if your product doesn't provide a return on investment to the customer in terms of the money and time that the customer is investing into your product. So in other words, your product doesn't have product market fit. No matter how well you advertise or promote that product is simply not going to sell because it doesn't actually provide any benefit to a potential customer. So working on refining down the exact problem or value adding aspect that your product is actually providing to the customer and changing the product slightly to make it more suitable or add more value to the customer's life. That should be a core focus on your side, and it's very difficult to outsource this to someone else as well. And if you do, it's going to be very expensive. On the acquisition side, so acquiring customers, content kind of is a spin-off off the back of a product. So if you have a good product, but you can't actually portray the value of that product, you won't get anywhere near the cut through that you would if you have effective content or an effective way to portray the benefit of the product. And in my opinion, the easiest and most effective way to effectively portray the benefit that a product could add to a customer's life is through good content. Now, again, as a business owner who has developed the product themselves, you have possibly the best understanding of the product and what value it can potentially add to a customer. So it makes sense that you should ideally be the one actually producing the content to run in ads, place on the website, etc. Now, again, if you outsource this, number 1, you're outsourcing this to someone who may not have the level of understanding of the product that you have, and therefore may not be able to actually portray the value that the product adds as effectively as you. And number 2, if you do outsource this, generally speaking, this will be very expensive. And if you just spend a bit of time playing around with, just basic iPhone shots, a basic camera, etc., you can actually get pretty good content yourself that should be able to do a very similar job in terms of portraying the value of the portraying the value of the product as someone from a more professional background would. So those are the 2 points. Just to now touch on the retention side. Obviously, if a customer buys your product and doesn't see any return on their investment in terms of their investment from a financial perspective, so what they paid for the product, their investment from a time perspective in terms of learning to use the product, getting the product shipped to them, etc. If they don't see a positive return on their initial investment, obviously they won't come back and buy that product again or recommend that to anyone who may be experiencing similar problems as them. So in terms of retention, I definitely believe that product and product quality is essential here. And then obviously just from an acquisition perspective, it's product and then how you portray the value of that product, which is through content. And that content isn't just for the marketing side. So in terms of paid ads, organic socials, etc., I'd recommend prioritizing content on the website as well, because as I mentioned in another video here, eCom sales is a derivative of sessions, AOV, and conversion rate. And if you don't have good content on your website, people won't have a good idea of the value that the product can potentially bring to their lives, and that'll impact conversion rates significantly. And then following that point, if you're going to be investing money into spending on paid ads, etc., and essentially investing money to drive sessions to your online store, you want to ensure that you've first done everything you can to maximize the conversion rate side. Otherwise, you'll simply be pushing people to your store. They'll have a bad experience, and not only will that hurt your sales, it'll likely hurt or impact the likelihood of that customer ever coming back or interacting with your brand again, because their initial experience with your brand was poor. So that was it for this video. Hopefully you found some value out of that. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave that in the comments, and thanks for your time.